Over at Marvel Comics, the X-Men have recently called the nation-state of Krakoa their home. And Marvel's mutants decided to allow all mutants to be represented in Krakoa by establishing a governing body called the Quiet Council. They even decided to let Nathaniel Essex, Mr. Sinister himself, join their council, but little did they know that Sinister had been scheming and manipulating the whole time. He exploited the mutant abilities of Moira McTaggart, and to make matters worse, he even utilized his own DNA to sort of jeopardize the mutants' resurrection protocols. Mr. Sinister's plans got so out of hand that it ensnared the Marvel Universe into the Sins of Sinister event, causing the X-Men to even become manipulated by Mr. Sinister himself. My name is Arako Braddock, and today, let's go ahead and dive into the pages of Immoral X-Men #2 to see just how bad things get for our mutants 100 years into Mr. Sinister's deadly timeline. But before we get deeper into the video, I want to go ahead and encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button if you enjoy our videos. Next up, I want to go ahead and share Marvel solicitation text for Immoral X-Men #2 to get you caught up to speed on all the events happening behind the scenes. Putting the die in Diamond Age, hail the Pax Krakoa or perish. But to the Hell Age is born a hero. Say hello again to Rasputin IV. But what can one good chimera do in a universe of sin? The first century of Sinister's plan has come to an end, and whether it's better or worse may depend on the symbol on your forehead. And I want to go ahead and share Marvel's creative team behind Immoral X-Men #2. This one is written by Kieron Gillen. We have art in the issue over from Andrea Di Vito. We have colors from Jim Charalampidis. And we have letters over from VC's Clayton Cowles and design from Jay Bowen. The cover to the issue is illustrated by Leinil and Sunny Go. Here's a quick look at the Immoral X-Men #2 cover featuring the triumphant return of Rasputin #4, a character who really intrigued me over in the sort of initial X-Men miniseries, and very interesting to see how this character is implemented over in this issue, which we'll be covering a little bit deeper into our review. And let's go ahead and kick things off by talking a little bit about Andrea Di Vito's art in the issue. Di Vito is a little bit of a departure from artists kind of Lucas Werneck as well as Paco Medina, who kind of illustrated previous issues of Immortal X-Men and Immoral X-Men as well. But I was really kind of shocked to see so much characterization lent to the facial expressions of these characters. These characters have changed very drastically in a very small amount of time. And I feel like Di Vito did such a wonderful job kind of diving into the head of the new kind of status quo of the mutant character of Hope under the influence of Sinister, just from kind of like the character expressions and the reactions to the situation alone. Kieron Gillen has quite the story that this character embarks on kind of throughout the issue, but just getting sort of like that visual indicator early on in the issue that this is an important character due to like the really kind of wide and expansive focus of Immoral X-Men, I think really kind of makes this issue read a lot more cohesively than it would have maybe if it was illustrated by one of the other artists over at Marvel. And as well as just kind of, all these like little moments over with the Sinister character. There was a great sequence in this issue featuring Mother Righteous, and I really appreciate how the artist of Andrea Di Vito can really depict Mr. Sinister and Mother Righteous with all these sort of like nuanced facial expressions that recalls some of the work Lucas Werneck was doing in sort of past issues. I feel like Kieron Gillen is asking so much of his artist in the issue, and I'm really enjoying what Di Vito is delivering. In addition to this really kind of like in-depth and detailed character work, there's so much expansive kind of space opera hijinks throughout this issue, and just people kind of using this like dark subtext and this sort of like dark undercurrent in some of their facial expressions that we've seen Kieron Gillen utilize in past work, like, Phonogram and Young Avengers. I think Di Vito is just such specifically a fantastic artist for Kieron Gillen, with all the different kind of facial expressions and nuanced elements that can be captured in this issue. One of the things that I really liked about this chapter was Hope's sort of interesting relationship with Exodus. And I thought that went into some really kind of fascinating directions. In fact, I think it even kind of paid off some of the issues of Immortal X-Men, because we've seen sort of a lot of ancillary conversations between Hope and Exodus, but we've never really gotten to see some kind of definitive arc in their relationship. And I really think that is what this issue sort of offers from the visuals and from the writing of the issue as well. There's just so many kind of great moments with Hope in here, and sort of also leads to that kind of twisty-turny nature of the Sins of Sinister events. One of the things that I really liked about what Kieron Gillen did in Judgment Day, especially towards the lead up to kind of Judgment Day, one of the last major crossovers for the X-Men, was the fact that it sort of had this cat and mouse game between some of the Eternals versus another faction of the Eternals. And I really think that this issue is starting to bring some of those elements with kind of these Sinister X-Men and their relationship with Mr. Sinister. There's so much paranoia and intrigue in these pages that Kieron Gillen is able to capture. And I just feel even more immersed into Sins of Sinister at this point than I ever felt towards Judgment Day, especially in that main series, due to just all this really fantastic character work that we've captured between, previous pages of Immoral X-Men and this current series. The implementation of Rasputin IV in this issue is nothing other than epic. Her relationship with Mr. Sinister is just kind of so wild, and actually introduces a sense of sort of resistance. It's a key character moment and a really important plot beat that will go on to make, this issue feel even more relevant. And I feel like we now have a better understanding of why Marvel was kind of holding off introducing Rasputin until a little bit later into the kind of Sins of Sinister crossover as a whole. One of the last things that I want to talk about in this issue is, once again, how Mother Righteous keeps showing up in these X-Men comics to introduce a sort of end game to some of these characters. I really appreciate the fact that she's doing that. I think it's kind of so creepy and ominous to see Mother Righteous continue to show up in these X-Men books with a little bit more information than the audience, and a lot more information than some of her fellow X-Men. And I mean, even Nathaniel Essex, Mr. Sinister, is scared of Mother Righteous. So it just feels like, to a certain degree, that this character is just such a kind of wild card that is really introducing the X-Men universe to kind of so many stories. Due to the fact that Mother Righteous is actually a Sinister. She's kind of a core component to this title, but also just lends this sort of wild card element that really kind of, I think, brings this narrative towards a really intriguing direction. And I think also her kind of inclusion gives this hopeful aspect to the series. That's just such an interesting way to kind of end this issue, which feels, very sinister, but also has just a couple small moments of levity. And I think the final thing I want to talk about here is just how ironic it is to see kind of Mr. Sinister react to some of these situations in which he's sort of directly responsible for. And I'm wondering if we're kind of sort of get a situation like Marvel Comics' Dark Web, where sort of Madeline Pryor was able to kind of reform her role as part of that event. And I wonder if sort of Mr. Sinister is going to be spared from judgment due to the fact that he may be working to sort of undo this reality. But really curious to see if that is indeed where this plotting is going to go, and if maybe Mr. Sinister will be able to find some sort of redemption towards the end of Sins of Sinister. But judging by the fact that the X-Men seem so angry at him even before he sort of caused this reality, I think that might be a little bit far-fetched. So honestly, I'm having a great time over with Sins of Sinister. I think this has been a great sort of doom-filled crossover that's brought out so many intricate levels of plotting over from all of the X-Men creators. I've just had such a great time seeing what Al Ewing, Cy Spurrier, and Kieron Gillen have been cooking up across all of these Sins of Sinister comics. I want to know from you, what are some of your thoughts over on these books? Are you enjoying them as much as I am? And does the Mother Righteous character sort of kind of scare you with that like wide range of knowledge that she's always aware of, that sort of the rest of the characters are left in the dark? Well, thank you guys so much for coming to check out the video. We'll be back really soon with more excellent comic book content. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye.